I see people asking like, how do I apply to be a digital nomad? And I try to tell them like it's not a job title, it's a lifestyle. Like you do need to bring a job with it, and there are so many different ways you can do it, whether you're a remote worker or starting your own business, freelancing.
Hey guys, welcome to Digital Nomad Finder podcast, where we're having conversations with digital nomads from all around the world about digital nomad related topics. And for this season, our first season, I'm interviewing digital nomads from all around the world about how they get started. So if you're someone who is wondering about how you can start to adopt the lifestyle, stay tuned. And on this first episode, we have Janessa Klatt. She is a digital nomad. She worked as a podcast manager, and her background is sports science. So she didn't have a technical background. She didn't have any online skills. She never had any experience working on a computer before, but somehow she managed to do it. So how did she get started? Let's hear from her. Janessa Klatt, welcome to the show. So tell me about, how did your digital nomad journey start?
Sure. So I'm actually relatively new to being a digital nomad. I like to say that, I've been a nomad for a few years already, and now I finally added the digital part. So I've been working and living abroad for a few years now, and I've only recently started a business that I can take on the road. So I've always been a big traveler, and I've always liked exploring for probably about 8 years now, traveling solo. So before being a digital nomad, I had moved to another part of Canada, which is where I'm originally from, for a job. But at some point, I got tired of that life and decided I needed to explore the world a bit more. So I booked a one-way ticket to Germany and had a working holiday visa and took my carry-on. And I ended up moving to Berlin for 2 years. I stayed because I just loved it so much. It was just such a good home base to explore a lot of Europe whenever I had time off. So from there, I actually got a job as a bartender for the first time, which was not at all what I had studied. I came from a sports science background. So it was a complete shift, but it was just a lot of fun. I completely fell in love with the city. And yeah, I stayed there for 2 years, including during COVID. And then when I had to move on from there because of my visa, I decided to get a job on a yacht as a deckhand so that I could keep working and traveling because the opportunities back home were still pretty limited because of lockdowns. And then I ended up doing that for 2 seasons of working on yachts and traveling around. And just this past fall, I decided I was ready to start traveling on my own terms again. And that led me to start a podcast management business. And here we are, I guess.
Awesome. How did you start your podcast management business?
Yeah, I thought it would be cool to be able to work remotely probably since COVID, when I realized that any jobs I felt qualified for were not pandemic proof at all. And but I thought I had no online skills or no tech skills. Like I said, my background was sports science, and so I'd never even had a job that involved working at a computer or in an office. I've never had a classic 9 to 5. So I think that makes me a little bit different from other people that are trying to quit their 9 to 5 and travel the world. I was already doing other ways of traveling, but now I needed to figure out how to make money while doing it. So I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts over the past few years, and I found I learned so much from podcasts, and I love connecting with other people through them. And I realized that it was something that I was vitally passionate enough to learn how to do. So I actually listened to a ton of episodes about how to become a podcast manager while I was working on a boat and like scrubbing the salt off the boat. I just have like one earbud in and I'd be learning everything about starting a business and working with podcasts. So I kind of laid the groundwork while I still had a job that involved pretty much no living expenses. So then I just saved up enough money so that by the time I was ready to leave, I kind of had a safety net to jump into and I could go full time in on starting their business. I know people always say like, don't quit your 9 to 5 until your side hustle is making money, but my job, it was 24/7, right? I lived at work. It wasn't a 9 to 5. So I kind of had to do it a little bit more extreme than most people do. And so, yeah, I just learned everything I could about behind the scenes of podcasts. And I found audio editing came a lot more naturally than I ever thought it would. And I found I really enjoyed it. And then I just started networking within different communities online to try to find other people that were doing the same thing or had started other businesses or that were starting podcasts. And now I'm about to hit the road again.
Wow. So how do you find it so far? Like being a digital nomad after, working on a yacht and then working on holiday visa, basically working offline, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a big change for me being on my computer so much. Um, but I like that I do have a lot more time freedom. So before, even though I was in these amazing places, I still had to show up at a certain time every day, still had to ask an employer if I could take time off and work it around that schedule. So I love that I can make my own schedule now, but I definitely miss the stable paychecks sometimes. I
Right.
think other digital nomads can relate if they've ever tried to start their own business, that it definitely takes a while to build up your clients and build up to a comfortable income and find a schedule that works for you. Definitely finding that work-life balance when someone else isn't deciding it for you can be tough.
Yeah. So how do you find your clients when doing now that you start your own business already? If you don't
Yeah,
mind
like I said, it's
sharing.
yeah, of course. That was like my biggest question going into this of like, how do I find people that will pay me to manage their podcasts and edit their audio? So it's just a lot of networking online so far. I'm active in a lot of Facebook groups with other entrepreneurs and looking for people that I may be able to help, a lot of networking on Instagram as well. And I'm hoping that going forward, hopefully referrals and word of mouth. So I have a handful of clients now that I really enjoy working for. So it's finally getting started, but it is slow. It takes a lot of time just to kind of get yourself out there and just tell everybody what you're doing without feeling, you know, too spammy out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the most challenging part about being a digital nomad, especially if you're starting your own business, right? Because finding clients, like where do I go? How do I start? So it's very interesting how you start from, loving watching or listening to podcasts and then finding your way and becoming a podcast manager. I'm happy that it's working out for you. How about pricing as a freelancer?
Yeah, good question. So it's funny because most of my potential clients and clients right now are actually based out of the US. So I've actually built my portfolio around pricing in US dollars, even though I'm Canadian. But I mean, nobody knows what Canadian dollars are. And for the past few years of living and working abroad, I've been paid in either US dollars or euros. And so I actually don't even really deal with Canadian dollars that often. So I've been going based on US prices. And yeah, I haven't really adjusted it for where I am, but more just what my clients would be used to paying and what kind of the standards are in my industry.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, the main thing to adjust to is not having like a steady paycheck from an employer. So kind of piecing together, I have one client that's going to be a monthly ongoing rate of this, but one client that's just one project based of this set amount, for example. So that makes it really hard to budget. Um, so again, that's why I'm kind of living off of savings at the moment. I think definitely mindset is a big one of I see other people in my industry charging a lot more because they have a lot more experience. Maybe they were a virtual assistant before they niched down into podcast management. So maybe they have like 5 years of related experience, whereas I only have a few months of relevant experience. So I'm trying to stay in line with it, what industry standard is and also not take anything that is too low. I definitely see people looking to get, contractors and freelancers that are offering a lot lower than what seems to be the standard. And I think that can just be really harmful for everybody when it's kind of becoming normalized to pay below what freelancers should be making and what business owners should be paying for these services. So I try to avoid taking anything that is too low, but also keeping in mind that because I'm newer, that I will still be on, the relatively lower end of what people from other Western countries may be charging.
Yes, how do you tackle that with with the competition? Because I think a lot of people are, struggling with, do I go lower in my pricing because everyone else is charging? How do you, like mindset wise, how do you deal with that to stay in the price that you think you are worth and not go too low in being that given that you are new to the business as well?
Yeah, I got most of my ideas about pricing from like some online communities that I'm part of. So I'm in a really good group with other podcast managers. So that definitely helped me kind of establish what base rates should be and what people are making once they do have a little bit more experience. And then it's really nice to have this virtual community of is a Facebook group, and we also do weekly coaching calls so that when something comes up, because things always come up that you're not sure of, then you can just throw it at the group and say like, what do you think about this? And there will be definitely people who are happy to give, realistic advice and also, kind of cheer you on and let you know that yes, you are worth like this as a starting rate, and don't worry, you will be able to get to a higher rate someday.
Nice. Yes, definitely supportive online communities or even offline communities is really helpful. Do you have any favorite online group communities that you would
Uh,
like to share?
yeah, I do actually. So my favorite one for general entrepreneurship and the location independent lifestyle is called Location Indie.
Location
Indie as in
Indie.
independent. Yeah,
Yes.
Location Indie. They have a podcast as well, and it is a paid community, but in my opinion, it's definitely been worth it so far. It's the only paid community I'm part of, but the amount of genuine connections that I've made through that group and also just learning experiences through doing different workshops online that they bring in, guest experts and things like that has just been super helpful. And then as well for the podcast management side, I did do a paid course, and then the course came with this online community, which has definitely been the best part of it so far. And then otherwise, there's a ton of other Facebook groups out of there like that I just jump in and out of.
So the Location Indie, where can you find the group? Is it on Facebook?
Uh, no, it's on another platform. So you can just check out the Location Indie website, and
All
they
right.
only open it up for membership a few times a year. And so the most recent time that they opened it up, I was ready to pull the trigger and get in there because I've been listening to their podcast for a long time and knew that it was something that I wanted to be part of.
How do you normally choose a location to travel to as a digital nomad?
Yeah, right now it's a little bit based on affordability. So said I'm going to stay at some places that have good co-working places, but I also want a lower cost of life at the moment. So I'm going to a bunch of places that are all much cheaper than where I'm from, where I could still have a decent quality of life. And so pick places that are affordable, have good co-working because that equals community and good internet in places that may not necessarily be known for having good internet. As well as a little bit of weather. It's January here in Canada, and I stayed a little bit longer after the holidays, but now I'm just dying to go somewhere that doesn't have snow.
Nice. What about when before you were a digital nomad? How did you choose a location?
Sometimes it would just be spontaneous, just based on like a cheap flight or bus. It may be a city that wasn't even on my radar, but I can get there, so why not? I'll figure it out. Um, and then that just kind of one place leads to another. I don't often choose places based on other people because, like I said, I do like to travel alone quite a lot. So sometimes I might go to a place to meet up with a friend that I've met through other travels, and that's nice. but usually it's just kind of wherever kind of is calling my name at the moment and is reasonable to get to, I guess.
Nice. So, as a more experienced traveler, where would you recommend someone that is newer to travel to go?
I mean, it depends on budget, definitely. Like for people from North America, for me, New Zealand was my first big international overseas trip, and that was a super comfortable place to land as a new solo traveler because there's no language barrier. It's very safe, very easy. There's a typical backpacker path. Um, but it's definitely on the more expensive side. So if people are looking to kind of stretch their money a little bit further, I feel comfortable like everywhere in Europe. There's nowhere really that I've been so far that hasn't felt safe to me. I would love to get over to Asia at some point. I know that that is definitely more backpacker budget friendly. And at this point, sounds like most places are pretty safe if you stick to spots other backpackers go. So I would love to go there. But I just recommend people that are new to slow it down. You know, these people that try to go see an entire continent in 2 weeks.
How does, being a digital nomad change the way that you travel, if at all?
Oh, good question. So like I said, I traveled quite a bit for about 8 years on and off, and 2 of those
Mm-hmm.
years I had a home base within Europe, so I was able to travel a lot, just kind of shorter city breaks. I would go for 3 or 4 days at a time, and at that point, I really made an effort to go somewhere new at least every month within Europe, which was super doable with that style of life. But now I'm trying to definitely slow down my travels, so I did a bit of a trial run as a digital nomad last November, going back to Berlin, which is a city that I knew and loved and had a community there. So it didn't feel quite as much like travel full time to start off because I didn't feel like I had to go do all the touristy things. I could just have a normal work day, hang out with old friends. And then I came home at Christmas to visit some family and really just put my head down and work. And now that I'm hitting the road, my goal for 2023 is to spend minimum 1 month in each place. I don't know how people hop around any faster than that. I've always liked traveling a little bit slower and going to, different destinations anyways. So I think going forward, it'll be more like 1 to 3 months in a place might be my sweet spot. But in this moment, there's just so many places I want to go and I'm a little bit impatient. So a month is the goal for now for my first full year.
Is there any places that you've traveled to before, when you were working offline that you would like to go to again now that you are a digital nomad?
Yeah, definitely Mexico. I've been there just for a holiday and I'd love to go spend some more time. There definitely seem to be some digital nomad hotspots popping up. So I'm trying to avoid the ones that are becoming super oversaturated and instead I found some smaller co-living places that look like a good place to start and meet people. I would love to travel more of Latin America after that. I'll definitely never get tired of Europe, so I'll probably always go back and visit and meet up with friends and spend some more time there. But I mean, there's entire continents I haven't been to yet. So, like I said, I'm a little bit impatient. I just want to go everywhere. And I guess it'll depend on, meeting people as well. I'm already, networking online and building a community and planning to meet up with some of these, virtual friends I have in different parts of the world over the next year. So I'm sure there'll just be more and more of that.
So do you normally build a connection online before going places, or you find the community once you get there?
Yeah, I usually find the community once I get there. Like, for example, when I moved to Germany, I didn't really know anybody there. And now a lot of my best friends live there. And so that's why I'll probably always go back. A lot of times when I travel, like I said, I love solo travel. I would go by myself and just explore. And I love that being alone really opens you up to meeting people that you probably wouldn't have met if you arrived with a group of friends. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Which country was your favorite to do
Oh,
digital
that's so
nomad?
tough. That's so tough. I know I've already talked like a lot about Germany, and it just has like a special place in my heart by now. Some of my other places that have been favorites to visit were Australia and New Zealand. I think it's just so beautiful over there, and the people are incredible. I also really liked Budapest was one of my favorite cities in Europe. It's one of the few places I've actually been back a second time. I tend to always try to go to new places, but I just went back there to visit the Christmas markets because it's nice to go at different times of the year. Yeah, it's so hard to pick a favorite spot, especially, I like them for different things. I'm definitely a warm weather girl. I don't love winter. So I think
Hmm.
going forward, I mean, Christmas markets are nice once in a while, but I think I'll try to spend more time in warmer places and pick places based on the seasons.
What made you finally realize, okay, maybe I want to try working online?
Yeah, I think, yeah, like I said, I've been traveling for a long time. I grew up doing lots of road trips with my family around North America. And my first big experience was going to Australia and New Zealand. And I did like a study abroad semester in university. And that just got me completely hooked on travel. Like I always knew it was something I enjoyed. And then yeah, during COVID, realizing that it wasn't always the most stable to have an in-person job. I think I always thought of working online as somehow a less stable career path than the traditional what we're told we should do and show up at a job 9 to 5. And I just, yeah, realized I wanted a little bit more freedom in life going forward. Working on the boat also helped solidify that for me because, I'd be in all these beautiful destinations. And if I was lucky, I might have a little bit of time to go off and explore. And I had no choice of where to go. So I think just having that freedom in my life of deciding when and where I want to go to places, it got to a point where I needed to figure out what skills I might have or I might be able to learn to make that a reality for me.
Good for you. How long did it take you to prepare before you finally decide that, okay, I'm gonna do this full time now?
Good question. I was actually just looking back at an old journal that is going to stay home this time. I've started a fresh one, but last April, I remember writing down that once I was done with that job on the boat, that I was going to do something online that gave me location independence and that let me travel. And my goal was to leave my job within 1 year from then. So that would have been like March of this year. And I ended up leaving my job by the end of September of 2022. So I was a little bit ahead of schedule of that. I think once I realized that it was a goal and that I had a bit of a timeline, I was ready to just hurry up the process. And so I spent the rest of that summer while working on the boat, just laying the groundwork, like I said, of like taking a course, listening to a different variety of podcasts that could teach me things while I was working. So listening to things related to entrepreneurship and finance and legal and all of the logistics. So I think that really, lit the fire under me to like once I had an amount of money that I was comfortable that I could probably live off of for up to a year in places that are cheaper than my home country, of course, that then I'd be ready to kind of take that leap. So probably about 6 months of laying the groundwork from the time I decide, okay, within a year, I'm going to be able to do this. And then I was ready to go.
Awesome. And then by the time you decided that, was it, did you find it easy to get your first client?
No, definitely not. It took a few months, a couple months at least. So really just going from, educating myself to actually being active, putting myself out there, telling everybody online that this is what I'm doing now. How can I help you with this? I started out by doing some work for free just for testimonials to build up my portfolio. And I'm definitely still not at a sustainable income that I could live off. But like I said, I have that safety net of my savings to kind of keep me going. And I'm just picking more affordable destinations and a more affordable lifestyle for the time being until I do build up that income. But yeah, it was a few months. So I understand why people say like don't quit your day job. Maybe some people jump into it a lot faster if it's similar to what they did before and they already have connections in that industry.
What's the challenge? What's the most challenging part to be a digital nomad for you?
Oh, I think probably will be finding that balance of, work-life balance. Because if you're in a cool spot, obviously you want to go and do what other people are doing and go to the beach and go on that hike, and then not be attached to your phone all the time. I'm definitely already guilty of this, of, answering client emails at all hours and not really setting those boundaries. So I think as I kind of grow, I need to make sure that, yeah, I establish those boundaries to, not, work enough, but not work too much.
What is the perfect picture of work-life balance for you?
For me, I would love to not be spending full time on this. I'd love to focus for, several hours a day
Mm.
on my existing clients and then a little bit of time finding new clients or working on my business rather than in my business. Whereas right now, it's a lot of just working on my business and still streamlining my systems and everything. So being able to wake up when I want to wake up and be somewhere where I can spend time outside, how I can, go and do yoga every day and make nice fresh foods and walk around, things like that. And yeah, spend a few hours a day doing more focused work. And because right now I'm not all that focused. So I definitely spend more hours on things than I need to. And just being able to like enjoy a place you're in, but not have to move too quickly, I guess.
What's your tip or advice for anyone starting their own digital nomad journey?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just to have realistic expectations. You see so many of these digital nomads now kind of advertising this lifestyle of, 10K months, six-figure salaries, working from the beach. Like, I don't know anybody that wants, sand and salt water in their laptop. It's definitely not as glamorous as a lot of people make it look. And I think it can be a bit misleading of, I see people asking like, how do I apply to be a digital nomad? And I try to tell them like it's not a job title, it's a lifestyle. Like you do need to bring a job with it. And there are so many different ways you can do it, whether you're a remote worker or starting your own business, freelancing. So it just to kind of go into it with realistic expectations that not every digital nomad is out there living some, high style life, that some of us are definitely more on a budget and that it'll take a while to get started and that you just need to keep at it and be persistent and have a little bit of patience and that eventually hard work should pay off.
Yes, I like that. Especially, working at the beach is not as fun as it looks because sometimes you struggle with the lighting because you can't really see what's on your
Exactly,
computer.
and then you have to plan for times in your day when you have meetings like this and calls to be able to be somewhere quiet and have a good internet connection. So I think like that's why I'm going to start staying at some co-living, co-working places that you do have, yeah, that reliable internet, a little bit of privacy when you need to go on calls. Yeah, that is just not all
Yes.
as glamorous as it can look on Instagram.
I heard that a lot of digital nomad, one of the, struggles that they're facing or we're facing, I also identify as digital nomad, is loneliness. Do you find that challenge as a challenge for you as well, or you kind of have that figured
Yeah,
out?
it's tough whether as a digital nomad or just a, backpacker, traveler, expat in a community that, yeah, people will come in and out and you'll form these connections. And then, you suddenly feel like you're best friends with somebody and then they're moving on. I haven't been to Bali. I would love to go. So many places on the list, but I think just having, good connections with people back home as well, whether they understand what you're doing or not. And then also building up these longer term, deeper connections with other digital nomads. So, whether that's joining online communities and meeting up with people, going to conferences and events, I think that's a really good way to get to know other people that have a similar lifestyle. And then hopefully you'll be able to meet up with them in different parts of the world at different times and yeah, just putting yourself out there in situations where you do get to meet like-minded people, because otherwise I imagine it could get very lonely.
Yeah, I like where you say people do come and go, whether you are a digital nomad or not, which is I believe too. But I think it's like, when you're not a digital nomad and not move around, people still come and go. It's maybe your friend go want to move to another country or another city or things like that. But when you're a digital nomad, I guess it happens a lot faster. I guess we get used to that, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Like I love the social aspect of staying in hostels, like as a backpacker, but as a digital nomad, I can't imagine the constant people in and out and people partying, when when you have to work still and then you don't want to be out all night every night and have people coming into the room at all hours. So I think that's why I'm gonna give it a try with like some co-working because also just staying in an Airbnb by yourself could definitely get lonely. So just yeah, finding communities wherever you go, and it seems like there's more and more of them popping up. So I think that's the good news for us.
how does travel change you as a person?
I like that question. I think it's so important to travel and get out and see the world and see that there are different ways of living than what you're used to. Like, for example, I'm from Canada, so my family is all still here. So I'll probably always come back and visit, but it's just so interesting to see different ways of life in other places and really like immerse yourself in other cultures. And you just learn so much more, so much faster than if you'd stayed home. And I don't know, I've never heard of someone who says, "Oh, I regret traveling to all of these places." Like, if anything, you just grow so much more as a person. Um, I think more people need to get out there and travel and figure out, what places in the world speak to them and where they can find community and what works best for them as a person. Because it gives you just so much more understanding and empathy for where other people might come from when you realize that not everything is the way it is back home.
Do you go back regularly?
So the past, I think it's been 5.5 years that I've lived in other cities than where my family is. And often I've only been able to come back 1 or 2 times a year. So this past year in 2022, I was actually able to come back I think like 3 times in the year, not just at Christmas, but I managed to come back in the summer as well, which was so nice, which also really sparked the need to have a bit more freedom so that even though I do like traveling most of the time, I can choose to come back, when the weather is actually really nice here and enjoy time outdoors with my family. So going forward, I definitely want to come home at least twice a year. When I do come, I try to come for a month at a time if possible, just because it is quite expensive to get here. At the moment, I'm planning to hit the road for probably 6 months before I come back again. So I'll see how it goes going forward of how much time I want to spend away from them. But I also love it when my mom comes to visit me in other countries because then, we can catch up somewhere else and have a good time together without me having to come home all the time.
Speaking of home, what is the definition of home to you?
I love that question because that has changed definitely over time. I remember the first time realizing that home had changed for me was after studying in Australia and coming back to Canada for the first time and after spending, a significant amount of time in another country and feeling that reverse culture shock and realizing that, the place I'd grown up in no longer felt 100% like home and that it might never again now that I've felt comfortable in other places in the world. So at this point, I think it's possible to have kind of more than one home. So here in Canada, my family all still lives in the same city. So I'll always come back here to visit them. So home is definitely more about the people for me. And so this is still home, but at the same time, it's not. I would say my second home is Berlin because that's where a lot of my friends live now, and that's the other place that I've lived for the longest period of time besides my home city where I feel comfortable. So I think in the future, I might want to, when I eventually want to slow down traveling a little bit, have maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 3 home bases that's somewhere comfortable that I can always return to. But yeah, home has definitely changed the more I see of the world.
I love that home is the people.
It definitely is. I keep
Yeah.
returning to the people. I'm not that attached to the city itself, even though it's where I grew up, just because I like so many other places more. And maybe if I could take all the people I loved somewhere else with me, I could. But since that's not possible, then, I'll keep always returning to this kind of primary home, but have more than one throughout the world.
Okay, last one. Where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to connect with some of your listeners. So probably Instagram would be the best place.
Yes.
My Instagram is just Janessa Klatt. I'm sure you can link that. So everything about my business is in the link in my bio there. And I always respond to DMs. So if somebody wants to get in touch, if they think our travel paths might cross, or they want to learn more about some of the other travel opportunities I've done, like working holiday visas or yachting or something like that, I'm happy to answer any questions. So Instagram is definitely where I am most active. You'll see a little bit of me on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I'm definitely not as active there.
So, what do you think about the episodes, guys? Are you feeling inspired? I'd love to hear your thoughts and put it on the comments below. And I'll see you on the next episode. We'll be uploading every week.